All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video. Check out Pig and a Pickle, 2 locations, Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week in Marin, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. or until they run out. And then in Emeryville, they're inside the Emeryville Public Marketplace, and they are open there Wednesday through Sunday. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Well, we're going to do a little camp preview, and this is sponsored by the New York Style Italian Sausage Company. And I will tell you at the end of this video my 9th favorite New York Style Italian Sausage Company product. But let's start off by talking a little bit about the 49ers corners. It's an interesting group this year. I like the depth of the corner the 49ers have going to camp. Okay, so let's look at it. The starters are Diamador Lenore at left corner, Charvarius Mooney Ward at right corner. Isaiah Oliver comes over from the Falcons to man the nickel spot that Jimmy Ward vacated when he left for the Texans in free agency. Darrell Luter Jr. has been drafted in the 5th round out of South Alabama. He enters this mix. Samuel Womack is in year 2 as a 5th round pick out of Toledo. And then you've got Deshaun Jameson, an undrafted free agent corner who looked really great, I thought, in the mini camps and the OTAs and the rookie camp. And you got some other guys as well. Ambry Thomas was a 3rd round pick in 2021. And you still got Quantrez Knight from UCLA. You also have Miles Hartsfield from Carolina, who comes with Steve Wilkes over in free agency. So let's just kind of go through the group for a second. Hartsfield's interesting. I don't know if he's going to make the team. He's 5'11", 210 pounds, 4-year vet out of Ole Miss. He's versatile, and he knows the system. And this was a guy that Steve Wilkes handpicked. So you've got Hartsfield coming in as a nickel corner potentially. He may play a little bit in the nickel. Diamador Lenore's in his 3rd year out of Oregon, 5'10", 200 pounds, worked in the Mamba Center in the South in Southern California, got stronger in the offseason. He's looking to, solidify his starting role and carry over the momentum from last season. Then you got Darrell Luter Jr., a 6-foot, 190-pound corner from South Alabama, who was the Niners' 5th round pick. He's got really long arms. He's versatile. He's very mature. This guy went from Pearl River Community College to South Alabama. He's a married guy with a young daughter, I believe. And Luter's interesting. He's got some dominant traits. We mentioned Isaiah Oliver. They signed him away from the Falcons to fill that nickel role, and you got Mooney Ward, and you got Womack, who was very impressive on special teams last year. And then you got Charvarius, of course, who came over from the Chiefs, and he established himself as a true number 1 corner. So a lot to like in the 49ers secondary. The Niners had a league best 20 interceptions last year, and they limited quarterbacks to an 82.7 passer rating. That was 6th lowest in the NFL. And they returned their 4 starters at the end of the year: Charvarius, Lenore, Hufanga, and Tayshaun Gibson. We're just specializing or focusing, I should say, in this video on the corners. And then, of course, they bring in Oliver, who was a 2018 2nd-round pick out of Colorado of the Falcons. He had a couple of really shaky seasons on the perimeter, on the boundary, and he's now been much better as an inside corner. So can Isaiah Oliver continue that momentum? I think that's going to be one of the questions as well for the 49ers. If he can, that's a great thing for the Niners because Oliver's coming off a terrific year. So if you look at this Niners secondary, 2021, they drew a league-high 32 defensive pass interference penalties. And the Niners cut that total to just 6 last season. So that was a huge jump. And that reflected in the improvement across the board in the secondary. Obviously, the addition of some of the veteran talent at safety has helped. But the real challenge going into this year is they've lost 2 alphas in their secondary. And they're both guys who could play coverage. Jimmy Ward could play that nickel spot. He also could play free safety. Very tough player, a tone-setting physical player. And then you have Emmanuel Mosley, who was, one of the longest tenured 49ers. He moved on in free agency as well. Mosley was another alpha. Now, to me, the Niners were quite a bit worse after Mosley was done for the year. And he's just a special player. So you lose Mosley and you lose Jimmy Ward. And not only do you lose good guys, good players who could cover on the corner, but guys who could really play the run. And to me, that's the big question with the Niner corners. I like the depth. If you have 5 corners, you're pretty solid. The 49ers can go Lenore, Charvarius Ward, Isaiah Oliver. That's 3. Then Darrell Luter is definitely an NFL caliber corner. Samuel Womack, that's 5 right there. I really like Deshaun Jameson out of Texas. I think he's going to make the team. That's 6. So after that, I mean, it's going to be very difficult for the remaining corners, which includes Trace Swilling, Ambry Thomas, A.J. Parker, Hartsfield, Quantrez Knight, to some degree, is also in this group. It's going to be very difficult for those players to make this roster. So overall, I really like the depth on the corner, and to me, that's a major question every year. Teams don't play with one corner. I mean, they obviously don't play with just one, but they don't play with just 2. You got to have. It used to be you had 2 corners, and your third corner was like the guy that saw the field, and that was pretty much it. But now you're living in a world where teams are in the nickel, teams are in the dime, teams are in some form of the sub package 75% of the time. So of every 4 snaps, 3 of them are in the sub package, and teams are putting 4 and 5 wide receivers on the field and daring you to have 4 or 5 quality corners that can man up. And the one thing with Steve Wilks is is probably going to play a lot of cover 3 when they zone it up, but he also wants the ability to play man to man. And I think in Womack, Mooney Ward, Ambry Thomas, Luter, I think there's some players there that can really play in maybe even Deshaun Jameson that can play man to man coverage. So you might see the Niners playing more man coverage than they have in the past. Nickel was, or I should say, zone was a huge part of D'Amico Ryan's off a defensive plan. They played a lot of zone. The saying in the secondary is if you match up, you play man. If you don't match up, you play zone. The 49ers, I think, have felt like they haven't matched up. Now, this year, I'm going to give them a solid B for their corners. Why? Not because they're so dominant, though I think Charvarius Ward is a true number 1 corner. I've got some questions about the overall talent of the group, but and speed especially. But Charvarius and Lenore, and now you add Isaiah Oliver, who's a big-bodied guy. I don't think he's the hitter that Jimmy Ward is, but I think he's going to be a better cover man than Jimmy was. So you got 3 really solid corners right there as your starters, and then you've got Samuel Womack and Darrell Luter, and definitely Deshaun Jameson, 3 really solid backups. And that doesn't even include Ambry Thomas, who once upon a time was a 3rd-round pick out of Michigan. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly how this thing shakes out, because there's a lot of young talent here. And, who takes the role of the leader at the corner? And can Ambry Thomas bounce back? That's a big question as well. Thomas was relegated to pretty much bench warmer duties last season, despite the fact he started at the end of the season prior. So he needs to take a major step forward. I really love what I see when I watch Samuel Womack. Womack, we shouldn't be surprised. He went to Toledo as a walk-on and became an all-conference corner in the MAC. So that's a huge accomplishment right there, and it kind of tells you what kind of worker Samuel Womack is. And we saw it this year, in camp earlier in the mini camp. Womack is moving exceptionally well. I mean, he really does. He's moving like an outstanding young player. So, is he going to be an outstanding young player? I think there's a lot of potential for him to be exactly that. To be a player that that winds up being starter caliber player. So anyway, I really love Samuel Womack. I think he's the breakout player on the corner. But also, if you're going to training camp, keep your eyes on Deshaun Jameson. Jameson is fantastic and really looked, as a 5-year starter at Texas, and a guy that can really, he's just around the ball. He's got an uncanny knack to be around the ball. And as the camp progressed, it just seemed like he made more and more plays on the football. All right. Our 9th favorite New York style Italian sausage product, Going forward is Don Juan's Chorizo, which is phenomenal. Try the New York style Italian sausage chorizo. There's nothing quite as good as, I mean, you can put it on a lot of things, but to me, the best way to do this is you chop up the chorizo and you put it in with some scrambled eggs in like a breakfast burrito. And that is probably, I mean, that's beautiful. I mean, that's all I got to say. It's absolutely phenomenal. So definitely, if you get a chance, try the Don Juan New York style Italian sausage chorizo. You will not be disappointed when you try the chorizo. My ninth favorite New York style Italian sausage product, and they're sponsoring our training camp preview. But overall, I'm giving the Niner Corners a B. I realize they could have greater speed. There's not a true number two. It's a little bit of a projection, but I think Oliver gives them a lot. I think Womack's on the uptick. I think the fact that they're 6 deep on the corner, maybe 7 deep, if you're a believer in Ambry Thomas, that's greater depth and quality of depth than most teams have at this position. All right, hope you enjoyed our video. Check out Pig in a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. And thanks to all of you for supporting the Krueg Show on YouTube.